It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, March 21st. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is back at it again. We've got the Canes tonight.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here each and every day with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. And we, as a show, are on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Locked On Flyers as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. You can find us for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, no practice yesterday, so there really wasn't much of a follow-up beyond what we got post-game against the Leafs on any additional fallout from the Couturier scratch. But I do think that, Torts is just being Torts post-game in like the most Tortsy way possible in terms of deflection and stuff like that. But, on to the next one, right?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely should have answered, and he didn't. And some of his former players, like Brandon Dubinsky, said his act is getting old, and he backed up Couturier. And it's funny because like there are some people that are like, "Oh, listen, don't fight Couturier's battle for him. He can handle it." And it's like people don't understand. Like he just literally became captain. Captain is supposed to have good communication with the coach. He said he doesn't
Right.
have good communication with the coach. That's a problem. That's a big problem. And I think that's the part that people are missing, not the part that he got scratched. It's more than that.
Yeah, and that's something that Torts has done. And, I don't necessarily think it's a good or a bad thing on its own. It's just a style that he has. And, you either agree with it or you don't, but he's very removed, I think, from the players in a lot of ways. He leaves a lot of direct communication to his assistant coaches. And I think, it's a choice. And I think that, there could be an impact there as it relates to more, of a long-term effect on some of the players like Couturier. But, I do think that in some ways it's a valid choice. You just have to recognize that there's consequences there.
Yeah, I mean, I understood why Couturier's agent got involved because the the view from not so far inside is, hey, is Couturier even a good captain? Like, why is he getting scratched? Why is this happening? That's why that was going on, and nothing could be further from the truth. So I think
Correct.
but that's what happens from the outside when something like that happens. That's what people jump to that conclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Flyers are, in fact, facing the Carolina Hurricanes tonight, and probably could not pick a worse time to play the Carolina
Yeah,
Hurricanes in this season. Man, they are just having a banging good time after the trade deadline. As we know, they acquired Jake Gensel from the Pens, who was activated off IR and has been playing well. Evgeny Kuznetsov they got from the Caps. All this in-division trades that they managed to get some really good assets to add to an already very good team.
yeah, it was always a very good team, but there was always like this offensive component that would be missing, especially in the playoffs, and would sink their chances at some point, depending on who they're playing and what series, what round. Now they're kind of built for the long haul. I mean, Jake Gensel already had a 3-point night.
Yep.
That's that everybody knew Gensel would be a big ad. So now you're adding him. This is a really hard game.
Yeah. There's 4 games between these two teams this season. So far, it's 2 games to 1. Carolina but we haven't seen them since late November. The
Right.
last game was a 4-1 win by Carolina, and the road team had won all the games in the
Right. Right.
series. And so it's just going to be an interesting one, I think. But yeah, Carolina has been a juggernaut recently, 8-2 in their last 10. You mentioned Jake Gensel had 3 points in that last game they had against the New York Islanders, who are in a slight tailspin here, you would
Yeah, they
say.
lost 5 in a row.
5 in a row, and that game the Canes won 4-1. They also won against the Sens, the Leafs, and the Panthers. So it's not
Yeah.
just like teams below them that they're winning against. They're winning against all these other top teams in the league.
Yeah. It'd be a good game to have Sean Couturier. Doesn't mean he would make them win, but it certainly wouldn't hurt. Beyond that, that's just part of the strategy. Beyond that, even what happened in the Leafs game can't be exactly run the same way, because they were fortunate. So they have to do better, especially in the third period of the next game. They can't
Well,
leave it all to the goalie.
right. And I think that's the watchword here, is playing a complete game. And I know it
Yeah,
sounds kind of trite or cliche in hockey land
it
to say you
does.
got to play a full 60, but you got to play a full 60 here,
You do.
because I think that's where the Flyers have run into trouble. Where, I think that whereas in the past, they've had good single periods of games. Last season there was a lot of games where they had one good period, and this season when they've struggled, it's been because they've had two good periods and one down period that was like
Right.
their downfall. And for a game against the Canes, like, they just can't do that.
No, and they also are a team that's strong down the middle. So face-off wise, got to do better. Last game wasn't good. Goaltending, I would think
Yeah.
Urson's going to be in there. I don't know who's going to be in there for Carolina. Probably Well, I don't know. Is Anderson playing a lot
Hmm.
lately? Yeah. So it'll probably be Anderson. So it's going to be tight. It'll be one of those games where uh, who makes the most mistakes loses. That's it's Brendan Moore's going to play that kind of game. But the only thing now is, before, when Carolina would play that game, it was easier to hang with them because they weren't going to be able to score sometimes. Now you really got to be careful.
Yeah, and Brendan Lemieux has found some success there as
Yeah,
well.
he
He signed
has.
a contract extension with Carolina. But yeah, their lineup looks so much different than the last time we played them, and yet they're still just this really good team. But interestingly, their blue line has not changed at all,
No.
and I find that really interesting, just from a structural perspective, in terms of them putting together this team. But man, the top four defensemen, they're just good. They just have really quality defensemen on that team.
Yeah. Yeah, they do have quality defensemen. Like I said, we'll see who's in that. I do like Kochekov personally. Like, I just think he's a good goalie, but I don't know if we're going to see him. But that blue line is good. Burns is
Hmm.
dangerous. Um, they hit. They can move the puck. Chatfield is dirty. Orlov can be dirty, but you also have great slap shot too. So it's a mix. That whole team, they're very well structured, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's going to be like two teams. Like we always say, they play almost the same game.
Yeah, and that's kind of the MO of Rod Brindamore's teams, right? Is like the structure is so well put together that anybody can slot in, and they can make it work. I know Kochekov played in their last game against the Islanders, so it could be Anderson at
Yeah.
this point.
Okay. Either way, not a day off. They're both good.
They are, uh, while we are planning for the Carolina Hurricanes, the NHL GMs had one of their semi-regular meetings, and
And play
some
golf.
like
Oh, I'm sorry.
they did. They probably did. But of course, our old pal Gary Bettman was there as well. They're talking about some rule tweaks, and Arizona, as they always are forced to do, probably against their will. And we will talk about all of that coming up next. Buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They've got killer deals on last minute tickets, and with their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over tickets and start getting excited for all the fun you'll have. My favorite parts of the Game Time app is that it's great for getting notified about last minute tickets and flash deals. Plus, you can get that all important view from your seat. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of your event and even up to an hour after it starts. So it's the place to find your last minute seat. Also, those tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through email. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL. On tomorrow's show, of course, we will recap the game we just previewed against Carolina. Another tough weekend ahead for the Flyers facing the Bruins and Panthers. We will, of course, talk about that as well. Gary Bettman and Bill Daly led the GM meetings that took place. And I joke about Arizona earlier, but you can just see it on their faces how little they would like to talk about the situation in Arizona. The one little update or two little updates we got on that topic is that Gary Bettman knows when the land auction is going to take place. He's not telling us,
Right.
but he knows when that's going to take place, and that Arizona will play at Mullet Arena next year, no matter what.
Right. Which, again, so this land auction, even if it doesn't land, they're like, well, we don't have enough time to book dates at this new arena. So they get another year in Arizona no matter what. And it's like, I mean, okay, I get it takes time, but probably should have just taken the time to have it all ready and ready to go in case this thing fell through. But they didn't. So this is like their choice. And all I could say is this. I said this on another show. It probably won't happen. But, what if Macklin Celebrini gets picked by Arizona? Arizona wins the lottery. He could go back to college. He could say, listen, I can go back and be
Yep.
the first or second pick next year, but I don't want to play for these guys until things are settled. That could happen. It won't. Most likely it won't. But I think you're going to get to the point where there probably will be some players that, high profile players that might not want to play there. But I would
Yeah.
think if that happened, the highest, it's a possibility. But we'll see. Just because it's uncertain, a lot of uncertainty.
That seems to be the word we use to describe Arizona, is uncertain. One thing they are certain about is the Four Nations tournament taking place
Yes.
next season. They're going to have an 8-day mid-season break for the non-Four Nations players, but they have the date set. They don't have the city set yet, but February 9th in 2025 will be the last batch of NHL games. February 11th through the 19th will be the tournament, and NHL games will resume on the 22nd. So it gives the guys playing in the tournament at least a few days off in the middle there.
I'm still voting for Toronto and Buffalo because I think it'll be easy for guys to get back. They're close to the border. You can get Canadian fans going both ways. It would seem like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I just feel like there may be Buffalo Toronto fatigue, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, there probably is, but
yeah, it is convenient. There's absolutely no doubt
that's
about
the whole
that.
thing. It's like, where can you, other border places, like, what are you going to do? Like, I don't know, Winnipeg and Minnesota. Like, you could do Windsor and Detroit. I'm just thinking of, it's got to be border places. So
my dark horse is Seattle and Vancouver, but it'll never happen.
that's a dark horse. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I just because of the time zone issue. But
Yes.
the other thing that they were talking about that is not resolved yet, but they have like next steps in place is the ever-present LTIR debate that has continued,
Oh
mostly
yeah,
based on
that
what
whole thing.
based on what Vegas has done. But they are sort of in a information gathering stage in terms of getting, owners and GM buy-in on if there's any potential desire to change those rules or how they work. Of course, it's part of the CBA, so any changes they propose have to get approved by the Players Association. So this is going to be a long, drawn-out process. So I'm not expecting anything to change anytime soon.
I expect nothing to change.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But especially with the PA involved,
Right.
and guys wanting to be able to go where they want to go and make the money that they can make, you might as well just bury that. But they're
Sure,
going to try.
I want to go to England,
They're
and
going to try.
I'm not going this year, but you are.
That is true. That is true. Go Phillies. Anyway.
Oh.
They also were talking about some rule tweaks, and there's no major rule changes on the docket, but they did come up with a few things that I think will improve some of the existing rules. So delay a game has been a scourge with the puck out of play, right? And
well, because it's like a strategy now by teams. It's like it's now like a coaching strategy.
Exactly. So they're adding a coach's challenge element to it so that you can reverse the penalty for puck out of play when the puck is deflected off a player, a stick, or the boards. If it's just a strict judgment call, like a batted puck, the refs can call it as is and you can't challenge that. But when there's a deflection, you can. And I think that's happened enough that this will help things.
Yeah, I think it will. It'll be interesting to see what coaches are kind of gutsy with it. The only thing is not all glass is the same though. And that's part of the problem here is the cutouts.
Yeah.
We've seen where some are like lower than other teams in the league, and it should be uniform. Why it's not, I don't know.
Well, especially, I don't know what you call them, but they're like the stanchions that separate the glass pieces that go around those cutout corners. Some of them are curved and some of them are not.
Right.
And that's the difference to me that affects things a lot with how the puck bounces.
It definitely does. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. So I think that's something they're going to have to take a look at in terms of consistency of the rink setup there. But another one that I think is an important rule change is related to the net being dislodged because, we've seen teams sort of semi do it on purpose through their goaltender.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying through their goaltender. So the existing rule says that a skater, where can't make a line change or they can't make line changes based on which skater dislodged the net, but now they changed the term to player. So that does include the goaltender there.
That's good because some goalies used to do that as a dirty trick. No question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that just little clarification there makes it so goalies will be less likely to purposefully dislodge the net.
Some will still do it.
And yeah, I mean, desperate times, but I think it'll take away some of the more egregious situations, especially when teams are down, because you want to be able to do line changes and get the face off in the right spot.
For sure.
And then the last one that I thought was interesting, that the GMs said that teams should have the ability to address a minor penalty for high sticking by having a coach's challenge there when it's friendly fire. So if it appears that the high stick was a teammate, they can use the coach's challenge to reverse a high sticking penalty that may,
because we've seen a few of those happen.
Yeah. So if it's like it looks initially like it was the opposing player's stick, but it was really their own teammate's stick, then, I think that's good that there's a coach's challenge there. I think adding some coach's challenges like this does affect, the flow of the game to some degree, but sometimes it's just so obvious. And I think that they won't use it unless it's very, very clear that that's what the issue is.
And I'm good with that. I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have one more segment to go on the show, and I'm excited about this because we don't often talk about college players that could be free agent signings, and we are going to do that today, and we're going to talk about Collin Graf coming up next.
Passion, drive, and patience, what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's your free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Collin Graf, Russ, as I mentioned, he is a college free agent. What made you want to talk about him today?
Well, these are like free guys to try and court and get on your team. Uh, the easy way is to show them a path where they can make your team and uh, play in the future, in the very near future. Sometimes it requires burning a year of ELC. Sometimes it's like, hey, next year looks good because, and you point out why. Like the Flyers have a weakness in at right wing, and so he
Hmm.
could solve that. With Quinnipiac, a championship team, he played the top slot. He's not 24 or 5, he's 21. So this is a guy that
Right.
has a little bit of runway and can has already played at a pretty high level. So I like him because he's smart. I think his speed is good. He the good hockey IQ. He knows when to make a pass. He's a pass and shoot guy, but he's pretty sneaky around the net. I think he'll get a little stronger. I like his two-way game. I think he kind of projects as like a third line guy in the NHL if he makes it. I know like Flyers fans a lot of times now they feel like every Flyers potential or any potential college guy that they might go after, we hear Joe Vecchione's name, and it's like, listen, it's not the same thing. Yes, he didn't make it, but I don't know why I keep hearing that name. And like people have to get past that. They don't all make it. But what's good about this is it's a free swing at the NHL, and it definitely helps your AHL team when you get these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Quinnipiac is a top program.
Yeah,
And this year, I believe they're playing in the Final Four of the ECAC tournament coming
yeah,
up. So he'll be a big part of that. Interestingly, he did transfer from Union, which is also in that conference. And
yes.
like to see an in-conference transfer
Yeah, he went
is
through the portal,
interesting.
as they say. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's a choice, but again, he chose a program that he felt like Quinnipiac. They're both well coached. Union is too, but Quinnipiac kind of sticks with their players longer, I feel, and just has a little bit more structure. So I think they went for that and just a little bit more of a name coach, and can't argue with him. You got a championship.
Yeah, and he came up through the Junior Bruins program
Yeah.
in Boston, which is a really strong program as a
Yes.
kid. And so, for him to transfer from that into, a top school in college hockey, I think is really, really good to see. So far this season, he's got 48 points in 31 games played. Not too shabby there,
No.
I would say. And I think, to your point, he does have really good hockey IQ. You know, what's the impetus to sign him this year? Do you think, does he have another year of eligibility in him, or is this it? Because he went through the
No,
portal. Did he lose a year?
no, I don't think he lost a year. It's just he's still a free agent. Like you just get a free swing at him, and how much better is he really going to get? So that's really the thing. It's not like he's a guy who has rights through another team and is waiting for them to expire, so has to go back for a fourth year. Free agent's free agent. You can get him anytime. So I just feel like,
That's
yeah,
fair.
he's a guy who's developed, and I feel like a team like the Flyers, who are looking to build for the future, should always look for players like this, because you never know who the next guy is going to be that really hits big like this. And once in a while they do, and he has all the right stuff. Like I said, he's maybe not a pure playmaker, but he's got a really good shot, a very accurate shot, and does everything else. And you just, got to take a shot at him. That's the way I look at it.
Right. And just, I do think, like, when you have a kid like this from Boston, are they going to hold out to try and play for the Bruins?
I mean, some do, but the Bruins obviously don't get every Boston college prospect. They
Right.
don't. But I think the Bruins and Rangers have probably an inside track. This is where you go with your management team, and after the season ends for him, and you gotta court him a bit and explain why this is the place you have to go. This is part of the job. This is where you can get talent that you don't have to give up a draft pick. You don't, what I mean? It's free swing. Guy wants to come to you, you sign him. It's a low cost thing. You throw him in the AHL. You wait a year or less, and sometimes they come in, they play a couple of games, go down to the AHL for the rest of the season, depending on when their season
Right.
ends. And and you could sometimes get a good player. You know, I want to say RJ Umberger was a free agent. He didn't get to Philly that way, but I want to say Vancouver maybe picked him up first that way. And he turned out to be a nice player.
Yeah, and we've been talking a lot recently, and especially this week in particular, about wanting good guys on the Phantoms
Yep.
that kind of complement our draft picks there that can help play around them. But also, if you get an NHLer out of it eventually, that's like an added bonus, right?
Plus, he's a
And
winner. Like,
if
he's
it,
got that history of winning.
yeah, yeah, because obviously Quinnipiac won the championship.
Right.
So he does have that experience underneath his belt. So, yeah, I think if you're looking at guys to bring to, especially bring to development camp, bring to training camp, to help motivate your guys that you have already there, and maybe he gets an NHL contract out of it. Like I would not say no to this at
No,
all.
I wouldn't either. And that's why, give it a shot. And there's other guys like this out there that will be out there. And these are the little things that teams can do to try and add to their base, to their talent base.
Absolutely. Well, looking forward to talking more about Collin and some of the other college guys that could be out there for the Flyers, as well as the draft eligible prospects. So, again, if you have guys you want us to talk about, let us know. You can do that by email at lockedonflyers@gmail. Send us a message on Twitter at lockedonflyers, or comment over on our YouTube channel. We will be back tomorrow with the next step in the Flyers gauntlet, talking about Bruins, Panthers, and doing a gut check on the playoff race and situation,
Yep.
see where the Caps are, all of that. So big show tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russell at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.